The leaves are falling today, and I've tried catching one. Have you ever tried catching a leaf as it falls down from off the tree? It's incredibly difficult to do. You've got to be lightning fast, and unfortunately my lightning fast days are long since gone. Long since gone are the days when I would collect these, or at least be asked by the teacher to collect leaves. I'm going back to 1969. Some of you will remember it, many of you won't remember it. Makes me feel old, but it brings back some very pleasant memories of when I was in Mrs. Pugh's class and we used to do art on a Monday. I like autumn, as you probably know, if you've watched enough of this rubbish over the months. Takes me back, autumn does. Back to 1969 in particular, third year I think it was, of infant school or junior school at Macclesfield Plains County Primary. Mrs. Pugh's class was the third year class, the third one up. Red door to the classroom, always remember. I used to like those days. We used to do art quite often, and art often this time of year would involve these leaves. Quite often on a Friday, Mrs. Pugh would say to us, collect some leaves over the weekend and bring them into school for art on Monday. We all did it. It didn't interfere with our game time on our Xbox or surfing the internet. We'd only just got decimalisation in the mind, digitalisation. So they were carefree days, and we happily went round collecting leaves, maybe at the local park or on the streets, during the course of that weekend. And then on the Monday, we would take our leaves in and we would be encouraged to get a piece of sugar paper. That's probably not available nowadays. And then get some glue, maybe glue these to make a collage on the sugar paper. Sometimes we were told to paint them with the poster paints that always used to be at the front of the class, which you weren't ever allowed to touch unless you were told to use them. And you would paint the leaves different colours and use your imagination to create something with them. I wonder if children still do that at school anymore. I dare say they don't. I dare say there's some health and safety executive order that's gone out saying that children aren't allowed to touch leaves on the ground because they're all dirty and full of germs and disease. What a nonsense, but the way society's going, it's probably not unexpected, that kind of scenario. But I hope not. Leaves are a really good way that children can connect with nature. One of the few times they're probably encouraged to connect with nature. Certainly one of the few times in my day when I was a lad. Nowadays, some 50 years later, worryingly, I look back on those days when I was a youngster. The thing about getting older is that you tend to reminisce a lot more because, quite frankly, you've got more to reminisce on than you have to look forward to. I'm just being practical. No harm in reminiscing. But autumns were very different and springs were, the whole year was. And what people don't appreciate today, through changes to our climate, is the fact that the leaves are actually on the trees for a lot longer than they were when I was a child. Earlier springs and later autumns. November the 10th today, on this beautiful partially sunny day. And yet 30, 40 years ago, in the 1980s and 1970s, there wouldn't have been a leaf on the tree that have been forced off by the weather, by the autumn storms. We didn't name storms then in the UK. They were just low pressure systems. And so now we have leaves on the trees probably 6, 7 weeks, maybe 2 months longer than when I was a kid. And that makes a big difference, seeing leaves on the trees. If you don't like the winters, if you're one of these that really suffers from mental health during the darker days and longer nights of winters, then you should revel in these autumns, these long autumns. With favourable weather, a lot of these trees will still be dropping leaves by the end of November. A couple of big frosts can make a difference, but to be honest, big frosts in November seems to be a long distant thing of the past here in the UK, at least in Nottinghamshire anyway. So get out and enjoy autumn. Maybe take the kids out, collect a few leaves and do something creatively with them when you get home. Encourage your children to get out. Those days making patterns and collages of leaves on sugar paper of various colours in Mrs. Pugh's class all those years ago, 1969, may well have what really instilled an interest in natural history into my developing little noggin. I like to think so.